Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today we're going to discuss the subject of tax residency certificates. I'm going to give you a broad description that might apply to you no matter where you are in the world, no matter where you might need one, and whether you even need one. But specifically, I'm going to answer a question which came up from a client recently related to what it takes to get a UAE tax residency certificate. So we're going to go through the specifics of what you need to qualify at a personal level, at a business level, how this might really affect you, whether you end up having to pay tax in your home country or not. So stick around. Before we do that, if you have not already, please obliterate the subscribe button, click the notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on any of our future videos. If you're at all interested in international tax planning, how to pay the lowest legal amount of tax possible, asset protection, how to protect your assets from lawsuits, etc., offshore company formation, offshore bank account opening, second citizenships, passports, including unofficial programs, official, etc., residency programs, where to move to pay lower tax or just plain to live better, where you can get citizenships, residencies, how to do it easily, reach out to us. You can book a call with me. There's a link below, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer. Happy to talk to you. Or reach out to us through our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. All right, let's dive into it. So I had somebody recently ask me about getting a tax residency certificate in UAE. So, we do a reasonable amount of business in UAE. There's a bunch of reasons why it's over the years become more and more compelling. And so this might come up as a factor for you. And why it's specifically relevant in terms of UAE is because in order to have a residency permit in UAE, or in order to maintain one, you only have to visit there one day out of every 180 days, okay, basically out of every 6 months. And so this is kind of tempting for a lot of people who say, oh, hey, I want to set up a residency somewhere and not have to be there. I'm a digital nomad, etc. I want some zero tax place. And what I always explain to people is that the big deal is not really so much whether you're resident in some place, it's where you're not resident, okay? So that's an important thing. Now, sometimes it matters where you are resident to where you're not resident. So for instance, I'm from Canada. Canada doesn't like you to be resident nowhere, and therefore, generally speaking, they want to see you resident somewhere. Australia is another country like this. There's a bunch of different places that have this type of thinking. Now, other places it doesn't matter, right? For instance, in UK, I was just talking to somebody earlier today, they have something called the statutory residency test, and under that scenario, you may just, so long as you can meet the requirements for being non-resident, you're non-resident. Same thing with places like Czech Republic, Russia, etc. But what about if you want a tax residency certificate? So in a bunch of places, you can get this form from the tax department, which states that that company is tax resident there. Now, I haven't actually seen this everywhere. It's not really a normal thing that you would get one of these, right? And even as I say this, I'm sitting here in Bulgaria. Look, in Bulgaria, it's not normal that you would necessarily get a tax residency certificate. Normally, you don't have to worry about it because the only time it would be relevant is if you're dealing with another country, okay? If you're just dealing with that country, you're fine. And this is the thing that I kind of want to emphasize, is some people seem to have this idea that, oh, will I be able to get a tax residency certificate? Well, the question is, does it matter? Do you need one? Lots of times you won't, okay? So that's my first question to you. Why do you need a tax residency certificate? Residency in your home country is usually a question of fact, not whether you have a certificate. And so, although I'm going to answer in a second here what you need, the truth is it might not matter. It might not protect you on the one side, and on the other side, it may not be necessary. So let's just answer this question really quickly so that if some of you want to have that answer, you can get off. In order to get a UAE tax residency certificate as an individual, you need to have spent half a year, 180 days is their cutoff, in the previous year or in that year in order to qualify. Okay, that's their cutoff for UAE. So just having a residency permit is not sufficient to get a tax residency certificate. To get them to issue you one as an individual, it's 180 days. For a company, the company merely has to have been in existence for a year. Okay, so long as you set up the company a year ago, you've gone through one cycle, they'll issue you a tax residency certificate for the company. Now, this is where I'm going to come to the other part though. So a lot of countries, for instance, I was talking to somebody in Romania the other day, okay, and they were saying, oh, hey, well, foreign income doesn't get taxed. I'm like, no, that's not accurate. That's definitely not the case. And by the way, in most cases, that's not the case. Most cases, like a lot of people will say, oh, foreign income. In most places, there is no foreign income and domestic income. Most places tax your worldwide income at a corporate level and at a personal level. So There are some cases where that's not the case, but you want to be really careful. Those are the exceptions, not the rule. All right. So let's say that I'm in Canada, or I'm in, well, Canada's not a good example because of the tax treaty. Let's say I'm in Australia, or I'm in Romania, or I'm in one of these places. In these cases, they deem the residency of a company based on where it's managed and controlled. They don't care if you show up with a tax residency certificate from the UAE government. It's not like a get out of jail free card. That's not the way that tax residency certificates work. It might, your bank may want that in order to say, okay, that's where they're going to do their reporting for the purposes of CRS. Maybe that will happen, although I don't really notice that to be common. So I think that would be unlikely, and I wouldn't be too worried about needing that. But potentially that would be the case. If you're talking about the actual taxes, like if a country is coming after you, that's not going to make them just magically go away if they think they have a case. Now, it might be that they're concerned, and when you present that to them, it gives them a little bit more, it might help, right? But it is not definitive. That's the thing that I want to emphasize to you. It is not definitive to have a tax residency certificate. If you look at the tiebreaker rules, because in reality, you can be tax resident in two places at once, or a company can be, right? For instance, it can be registered in, let's say, UK, and it can be managed and controlled in Germany, right? Well, Germany would say, hey, it's managed and controlled here, therefore it's a German company. UK would say it's formed here, therefore it's a UK company. It's tax resident in both. That's the reality. Then they'll look at the tax treaty and they'll try and figure it out. And they're going to go according to those rules. And nowhere in those rules does it say, hey, if a place issued a tax residency certificate, you're good to go. That's not how it works, okay? So, this is partially a cautionary thing just to say, hey, listen, don't worry too much about tax residency certificates. Pay more attention to where you're actually resident, where the company is actually resident according to fact, and far less to do with these certificates. But if you wanted to get one, that's what's required in UAE. And so anyway, I hope that helps you. If you're at all interested in these subjects, like I said, first of all, obliterate the subscribe button. If you like the video, click the like button. If you don't like it, tell me why in the comments. We'd love your feedback. Really appreciate it. Click the notification bell. But if you're interested in these subjects, if you'd like to figure out, hey, how do I build a legal tax structure? How do I make sure that I'm able to operate effectively through whatever countries are best for me, or what countries are best for me? Reach out to us. You can book a call, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer, link below, or check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. I hope that's helpful, and we will see you on the next video.